Salutations Rangers, General Bradley 101 back at you again with some more lore. And today's video, boys and gals, we're taking a look at the undying legions of the Necrons and their mighty dynasties. But more specifically, we're taking a look at the actual soldiers that are there, that being the Necron Immortals. Confused? Yeah, I thought you might be. But that's what we're going to find out today's video, as I'm going to reveal to you the secret of the Necron Immortals. So, ladies and gentlemen, strap on in, buckle up, and let's get crack-a-lackin' on with today's video. Necron Immortals are the elite shock troops of the Necron dynasties, and are the vaunted chosen servants of the Necron lords. Whilst indeed the Necron warrior is the most common and the most used, when a Necron lord wants something done right, he summons a Necron Immortal. And, I guess this is kind of we get to the whole secret of it. You see, before the Necrons were, well, the Necrons, they were the Necron tier. Much more fleshy and much more cancer-ridden. Now, during something called biotransference, when the Catan tricked the Necrons into giving up their souls so that they could eat it, every single Necron tier was transformed into a Necron. Women, children, civilians, and all. But here's the thing. The standard Necron warrior is not a warrior. He is the civilian. He is the women, the children, the non-combatants transformed into living soldiers. But then that begs the question, what happened to the actual warriors of the Necron dynasty? The battle-hardened legions that fought the old ones and Catan? Well, that became the Immortals. The Immortals are actually the soldiers of the old Necron tier, and once again they have taken their place, being far stronger, faster, and smarter, and even more soul-like, I guess you could say, for lack of a better word, than their standard warrior counterpart. And they really are just so much more superior than the standard Necron. The standard Necron could be comparable to a guardsman. Not actually, but for sake of argument, let's say that. Then truly a Necron Immortal is the Space Marine of the Necrons. And that comparison is far more apt than I ever meant it to be. Necron Immortals have armor that is just as tough or tougher than power armor, with there being accounts of them able to wither heavy bolter fire and assault cannon fire. Now granted, that depends on which edition you read from, but at the very least this is Space Marine level power armor, and maybe even Terminator armor, but again, it depends on which edition. I mean, I don't know how I feel about it being Terminator armor. I mean, it's kind of cool, I'm not gonna lie. I really do love Immortals, but hey, at the very least, it's Space Marine power armor level equivalent. But where they truly shine is their weaponry, because they are armed with Gauss blasters, which are the standard disintegration ray made manifest. When a Gauss weapon hits the surface, it doesn't make a hole in it. It literally removes the particles from it. It removes the matter from it, meaning that it doesn't matter how strong and powerful your armor is. If it hits any type of organic or matter-based material, it will perish, which is why shielding is so effective against it. But if you like your weapons a little bit more sparky, we then have the Tesla Carbine, aka the Lightning Gun. It is a gun that shoots a literal bolt of lightning. That is fucking cool. I can especially imagine this with Imhotep the Stormlord, because he deploys his boys via a storm, so it's like a lightning drop, like he's Sigma from Fantasy, and then all of a sudden you get Immortals dropped via lightning that then shoot lightning. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And I do know that there is a dynasty that has a light blue color scheme to them, so I'm like, I can put something together here. One of you guys who has an exorbitant amount of models lying around, get on that project. So yes, in terms of weapons, arms, armor, and gear, Space Marines and Necron Immortals are pretty much one for one. And in regards to the sheer combat prowess these guys have, don't sleep on them. Again, in some cases in lore, some people consider them to be just as strong as Space Marine Terminators, and with weaponry just as deadly. Not to mention, they really do have that sense of implacability to them. They form a staunch phalanx that even Space Marine bolter fire can't penetrate, as they walk forward and annihilate the foe in deadly, brutal fashion. Not to mention, it's said that when they get up close and personal, they're better at using their bayonets or whatever the hell it is than the old standard Necron warrior. Maybe because they're actually trained in it. But again, the sheer idea of this moving phalanx of death, these giant, towering monstrosities. And again, in some circumstances, in some cases with the lore, it's said that these guys are said to be taller than Space Marines. Basically, they're the equivalent of Space Marine Terminators, which kind of makes sense, but it's just really cool. This idea of this unmoving, unyielding Terminator phalanx marching forward. And again, in some cases, there's said to be legions of these guys, which again, the term legion depends, but it's anywhere from a few thousand to a couple 10,000. That idea alone just makes them incredibly potent. Not to mention the cool factor, man. They're so cool. Again, they're my favorite Necron unit because, again, I love my heavy infantry and I love these guys, not to mention that they're also kind of like sentient a little bit and they still have a little bit of their soul. It's just beautiful. I love them and I adore them and they're just, so good. But now we come to the crux of today's video, and that is the secret of Necron Immortals. And while some of you may have thought that the whole secret was, oh no, they were actually the warriors, that's part of it, because that does play a reason as to why they are the way they are. It's that Necron Immortals actually maintain a sense of self. They're able to speak, they're able to talk, they're able to operate. Now when I say that, I mean they will give yes or no's, a few one-word sentences here and there, a few light sentences, a little bit of a light paragraph maybe, but they're not actually going to engage in actual riveting conversation. Now while most people will say, oh no, that's because they can't, I personally think that's because they choose not to. Why? Because they're soldiers. They are meant to operate, they're meant to fight. And if it's not fighting, they don't really care that much. The perfect example we have is when a Space Marine talks about when he was fighting a Necron Immortal. He talks about how so different they are from fighting regular Necrons. They use tactics, they use ambushes, they use close quarters maneuvers. He also notes that when it comes to melee, they're not as rigid as before. Almost like they have this type of weird muscle memory, or muscle memory quote unquote, to them. And ladies and gentlemen, that is because Necron Immortals have a stronger will than normal Necrons. The Necron tier warriors who became the Necron Immortals were men who saw the literal horrors of the war in heaven. They had such a strength of will and arms that even despite everything, they were able to retain some measure of their self-identity. And despite all of it, despite over millions of years of slumber and war, they still remember who they were when they were flesh and blood. Even in the very, very microscopic bit of it, they still understand what it means to be a warrior. That warrior sense, that warrior mentality, that very quote-unquote human quality still exists in them. And it's not just when they fight. We have examples of Necrons expressing emotion. There are examples of Necron Immortals chuckling, or what an Imperial thought was a chuckle, or what could have been masqueraded as a chuckle. But we have even more direct examples of them feeling passion, such as in the book Twice Dead King Ruin, where Overlord Asarius and his 300 immortal personal bodyguard make their last stand. It's said that when Asarius roars, his men roar with him. For the first time ever, they scream in passion and rage. And again, some may say, oh no, it's because their lord did it. And again, it's like, it's really easy to say that, but think about it. These are warriors. These are warriors who understood what it meant to be in a fraternity, to fight, to die, and understood better than any other Necron the mortality of their flesh. Necron Immortals, in my opinion, are the truest form of the Necron tier, because Necrons are known for being unfeeling, uncaring, unalive. You have the Necron warriors who are literally just automata, and then you have the Necron lords who are arrogant bastards who don't understand that time moves forward. But in between that, you have the Necron warrior. The Necron warrior is someone who is, yes, very mechanical, very monstrous, very Terminator-esque, but in the same vein, they still have that little bit sense of self, of personality. And it's only in moments that are so different from what they're normally used to that they actually show it. But that doesn't mean that it's absent from them. Necron Immortals are a unit that just truly epitomizes the tragedy of the Necrons, really. The Necron tier went through so much. Strife, heartache, war, death, and everything else in between. And ultimately, at the end of it, for the sake of simply not dying at the age of 50, they were turned into mechanical monstrosities devoid of their soul. But despite that, those men who had fought, those men who had died, and those men who saw the horrors that was a universe engulfing itself in war, they still managed to hold on to a shred of their self, despite literal star gods claiming everything that made them for their own evil purposes. The Necron Immortals spat in that, and they still cling on to a little bit of what makes them unique, their soul. That is a very human trait. And I understand that the Necrons aren't human, but they are organic, they're sentient. Defiance is an emotion, a feeling, a motive that I think that everyone can agree on. Everyone can see it. To defy the enemy, to spite them just because you can. That is something that is very sentient. It's human. It's what it means to be alive and what it means to think for yourself. And there are times that we see with the higher end Necrons that they still show that little bit of soul, that little bit of self. Despite everything that's going around, they're still there, even if it's just a sliver. And that's just with the base Necrons alone. There are even 2 further variants of Necrons that even go further beyond to show this. The first one that we have are the Necron Guardians. These are specifically Necron Immortals that have just awoken with more of their sense. Whereas the standard Immortal retains some, these have retained an even greater amount, meaning that they are able to operate in a form of sort of like a sergeant or a lieutenant. These are even more human. They're able to operate in a more understanding capacity, and they're able to think for themselves. Thus, they are often used, as the name suggests, as guardians, specifically bodyguards to important nobles to protect them. And then finally, we have what is known as a despotic. These are senior immortals, and they specifically serve cryptex. They are both the herald as well as the enforcer. And what's interesting is that they are said to have the highest level of awaken and personality to them. Some even compare them to like nobles. More specifically, they serve as captains or generals. They are able to have a unique understanding of the strategic knowledge of the situation at hand. They're able to recall past glories, past understandings, past everything. And they are able to operate as if they were living, breathing enough themselves. Not to mention, in terms of sheer just martial prowess, the only thing that could be described as better than them are the actual Lich Guard enough themselves. But to round up about Immortals. Immortals conquered the galaxy. At the end of the war in heaven, the Necrons were victorious. And at the very head were Necron Immortals. Necron Immortals used to be the mainstay of the Necron dynasties. But the question is, how did they become the elite? That's because trillions of them died. The Necron Immortals were thrown away as cannon fodder during the war in heaven. But it was only because of their sheer durability and power that they were able to overcome this. Not just that, but also their tactical flexibility and their understanding. They are warriors. They are men who understand what it is to be in part of a fraternity. They understand glory, they understand triumph, they understand sadness, they understand all of that. These were warriors who conquered a galaxy not for money, not for power, not for glory. They did it because they simply wanted to live better lives. They wanted to earn what they had long so wanted, a life that was worth all the war. But at the end of the day, what any soldier truly wants, after all the fighting is done, is to finally embrace the peace. And the Necron Immortals were that on a gargantuan scale, a scale unimaginable to most of us. And it truly is saddening that after all the service that these mighty warriors gave, they know now no peace. They know only a life of war, to fight and to die, and to be resurrected again at the hands of sometimes uncaring masters. But we see that where Immortals truly shine is when they have someone to lead them. Again, I mentioned twice dead King Ruin, but that particular overlord, Desarius, he inscribed the deeds of every single one of his guard onto their armor. He made sure that they remembered what they did. And in their final moments together, his guard did not stand with him as uncaring automata. They stood with him as brothers in arms. Most likely what he had always wanted and what he had so terribly missed. To be a Necron is to have a life of nothingness. There is no joy, there is no pain, there is no sorrow. There is only to rise and to serve. But with a Necron Immortal, they change that. They break that cycle. They give you something that was once thought lost. They experience life. Even if it is muted and dulled and, dare I say, broken, they still cling on to what was stolen from them. These are warriors who conquered the galaxy, who brought gods to their knees. And despite the demons and vampire stars trying to steal their souls from them, they still maintain a level of understanding, a level of humanity, a level of a soul. And if the words of Nemesis Xandric are to be believed, perhaps the Necrons haven't lost their souls after all, and perhaps, maybe each and every immortal just has a little bit of theirs. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you thought about it down below. Have you guys loved Necron Immortals? Did you guys know that there was so much more to them than simply just being tankier, stronger Necrons? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. But I want to say a massive thank you to you guys for watching, and even more massive thank you to my awesome members and patrons. Big shout out to my Officer Corps with Mr. Eddie V3, Mr. Major of the Void, shout out to my Sergeant tier members, Mr. Damiak, Mr. Andy McGee, Mr. Warsmith.Fireheart, Mr. Corns Butcher, Mr. Bulwin, Mr. Sean IRL7, and Matthew Merrill. Big shout out to my Corporal tier members, Tremail the Math Kitty, Mr. Lord Rosarius, Mr. Tech Priest Toaster, and Shauna Smithers. And finally, but certainly not least, massive thank you to my private tier members, Mr. Thomas Moslons, Mr. Ivan_SVW, Mr. Hattori's Curse, Mr. Monkey Man, Mr. Michael Hayeda, Mr. Diego Castro, Mr. General Alexander, Mr. Fortus Unum, and Mr. Gentle Salamander. Thank you, each and every one of you. It means the absolute world to me that you guys do this. I love you, I appreciate you, and goddammit, you guys are just amazing. So sign up today with our memberships, you gain a bunch of awesome benefits, access to these videos early, behind the scenes stuff, helping making the channel grow, and my love and support. But remember, this will always be free, and whether you give your boy $1 or not, I will love you just the same. Mwah! Yes, I will. But ladies and gentlemen, I've been the General Bradley 101. You've been beautiful, awesome, and amazing people. Make sure y'all stay resolute out there, boys and gals, and I will catch y'all next time. Dismiss Rangers. They're literally Terminators, but like Space Marine Terminators that are also like Terminators, and the Necron Egyptian. They're fucking cool. I love them.